have, I think, a unique perspective on all of this. Most people don't know Land O'Lakes is a cooperative owned by your members who are mostly farmers.
Farmers and rural retailers.
Farmers are, I think, part of the sort of political constituency that this administration talks a lot about and sort of wants to see a renaissance and a strengthening of the American heartland. But tariffs are just gonna hurt them a lot. So I'm curious kind of what you're hearing from your members, what they're asking for from you as a public figure. What's the ask in Washington? How do you think about an industry that should sort of be a beneficiary here, but is just getting yanked around?
Well, listen, there are so many things packed in that. What am I hearing from the farmer, and what do we see, and what are the implications of these tariffs? So first of all, I would say they're in planting season right now. Growers are out in the field. And we're a dairy cooperative, so producers, cattle, we have cattle, we have dairy producers, and then growers. A lot of folks know our business for our dairy portfolio, but we are actually more significantly indexed to growers. 25% of the farmers, half the harvested acres, we have exposure to. So what do we see? The inputs are in the country. My concern is 2026. We already have an elevated cost basis. Growers are underwater already, especially on the soybean side. The corn, maybe they're more break even. This is the third year in a row where there's been weakness in commodity prices. And so we're seeing a weakening position from the farmer. Now the tariffs, we have positioned our job and our responsibility. Our business is performing well, doing the things it should do. Make sure that there's inputs that go to the local retailer that works with the farmer. All of those things are in position for the growing season. But the issue is going to be export markets. 1 row out of 3 for corn, 1 out of 4 for beans. 18% of dairy are exported. And it is important for the profitability of the American farmer. So this trade issue is significant. What we saw, and something to keep in mind, is during the last administration, during the first Trump administration, when there was this, I guess, I don't want to say conflict, but trade conflict with China, what you saw was the rise of Brazil. Brazil is outproducing us in terms of soybeans. Soybeans are used to feed the hog population. Half the hog population in the world is in China. And pork is critical for China. China has also started to increase their own production, self-sufficiency. So they're probably 95% self-sufficient. The one gap they have is really in beans to feed the hog population. And Brazil is their key market or their key partner in this endeavor now. In 2017, both Brazil and the United States planted, say, 90 million acres of soybeans. Since then, they've increased production another 30 million acres. This isn't destruction of the Amazon. They could bring on another 90 to 100 million acres just in pasture land. They've had a weaker currency, so their position is stronger as an export partner. So my concern is 26. What's going to happen? What market access is available to us depending on what the trade arrangements are? And then what about the long tail issues associated with the implications of not having export markets? Right now, one of our key export market, for instance, for corn is Mexico. So you can understand these trade arrangements are critical for the profitability of the American farmer. Now, part of this right now, we are seeing a weakening position at farm level. Consolidation has been occurring. There's only 1.8 million farmers. Half of them were profitable last year. They are underwater right now on their break-evens. And so commodity prices have declined over the last 3 years, but you know what? Cost basis has been elevated. It has remained elevated. When I'm with farmers, what do they say to me? What about trade tariffs? Listen, they want to support the president. I always think of the resilience of the American farmer. 19% of the population lives in rural America. They comprise 48% of the military. They are willing to invest in this country. It is in all of our best interest to invest in these rural communities and in the farmer for the stability of our food system. And they want to be supportive. This is who they are. They invest in this country. And at the same time, there's real concern. The first thing they talk to me about is labor, immigration, the lack of available labor for their farms.
What percent of farm laborers?
Probably half
Yeah.
are immigrants. And this is not because they haven't raised wages, et cetera. This is not that. This is normally, these are jobs that are hard to fill that you don't see a lot of American citizens saying, I'm going to sign up for that hard work.
But how do you get that message to the administration? Because these are classic, they're trying to bring back jobs that it's not clear that a lot of Americans want to do, or in certain manufacturing cases are skilled, have the right skills to do.
I hear from the administration and have heard more recently a willingness and understanding of this. So I don't want to say they don't understand this. And by the way, a bipartisan bill passed on farm workers passed the House twice, just never has gotten Senate and then signed in terms of a bill. So they're aware of this. There's not an office I go into, there's not a place I go into in the administration where they are not aware of this and recognize this. I recently heard the Ag Secretary mention a concern and a willingness to do something, but there's always, the devil's always in the detail. A touchback provision, what does that mean? Visa access, what does that mean? Who's responsible? We have not heard anything specific about what they're going to do from a labor perspective, from immigration perspective. But I will tell you, the emotion gets strongest from them when it comes to this particular topic, because these are folks who have worked with these families. And I think of this, my responsibility, yes, is the business, but it's really about their families, their communities, their businesses. That's the cooperative model, but it's so critical to the stabilization of the food system and the recognition that for a dairy farmer, for instance, is 24/7, 365. And they need somebody with them, a partner with them, labor with them to take care of this. 3 o'clock in the morning, the pump in the manure pit is broken. They have to be out there fixing this. This is the hard work, and they do it with joy. They do it and believe in their responsibility. And so what needs to be recognized is the necessity that they have labor available, and immigration reform broadly is critical.
I mean, the Europeans have done very well just like driving the tractors through Brussels. Like, this is a pretty, but I know this is a pretty politically sympathetic group of people. If you have farmers testifying on the Hill that they can't buy their seeds, like that feels like a pretty visceral feedback loop to me. How do you close?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to be very clear. There is support for border security. It starts with that, a recognition of that, a desire for border security. And I think the administration has made this clear that they want to start and prioritize border security, want to make sure funding is available, and they're meeting this requirement. So I think that starts with that. And then can a productive discussion really occur about broad immigration reform? In addition to my role here, I do sit on the Business Roundtable's Board of Directors and am chairing the Immigration Committee. And I would say broadly, immigration reform is necessary for the amount of workers that are going to need to be necessary to build the economy over the long term. Similarly to my comment on the farmer and the understanding of the desire for border security as a primary, and that's certainly what the administration has been focused on. As well, that is the case for most CEOs that are involved in this particular committee and most CEOs at the Business Roundtable. But there is an absolute desire for immigration reform, the need for workers, for laborers. Who's putting the shingles on the house? What about construction? What about nurses? All of the things, the trades that help us build this economy. And I think that is a critical opportunity area for us.
A lot of rural Americans rely very heavily on public services, on government services. that are on the chopping block right now. Curious, what you make of DOGE, and our previous guests were on kind of saying that we do have a deficit problem, right? So we have to either raise more revenue or cut spending. But understanding that a lot of your members are going to be pretty affected by, some of it's unclear whether you can get these numbers without touching the entitlements that really matter a lot, particularly Medicaid, I think, for you.
Yeah, Medicaid is a real concern. The number of rural hospitals that shut down are just extensive. So again, what are some of the things that folks talk to me about when I'm with our members, with our farmers in these communities is healthcare access. Of course, all the things we all want: good healthcare for our families, education, housing, all of those things. Food insecurity, by the way, in rural America, 90% of counties in America that index of food insecure are in rural America. The very people who are doing the work to feed all of us. Food insecurity, significant issue. Healthcare access, a tremendous issue with a number of rural hospitals shutting down. Medicaid access is critical for a number of these families. So that is a watch out. I think, to your point, entitlement programs, things like this need to be reviewed, but a recognition that, again, healthcare availability in these communities is a significant issue. And what will that imply? A lot of the rural population access Medicaid and then Medicare when they're 65 or older, and they do both. And I said, well, why is that? And that is because Medicaid provides some access to funding for nursing homes. Now, the alternative here, and the other point I'd make, is that, for instance, 99 nursing homes shut down in Iowa last year, and they were all in rural areas. So it's about access. Again, what are the investments we're making that is for all of us? It is not just for these rural communities. It is for the vibrancy of these communities, their ability to continue to do the work to feed all of us. And again, reminder, these are the folks who are investing in America with their service, through and have always throughout time.
One thing we've seen, I think, is a lot of industries kind of repackage or reframe themselves as national security imperatives. And obviously, like, there's an argument to be made, like you said, for food security. We should grow more we should support farmers, should grow more. Is that a package that kind of works right now?
Well, I was up on the Hill and was with the last couple of administrations talking about this, that we don't have a farm bill right now. We need support programs, we need safety net programs, but I would wish for them, for instance, to pull ag research funding out and put it into national defense spending. Something to understand, 70 to 80% of patents in the food space have come from China. China's spending on ag research is more than the US, India, and Brazil combined. They're investing in their food system. They wanted food security. That's what they're focused on. Ag research spending for the United States at 1970s level. This will have, again, a long-term implication. Population growth demands production growth, and technology and the use of new seeds, drought-tolerant seeds, those types of things are critical for us to continue to increase production. So this discussion, yay, that's exactly what I said. We should think of this as national security spending. It is in our best interest. And so where is this being made up? Well, think about it. Consolidation occurred at the basics level. Buyer purchased Monsanto, because you say, well, what's going on with private industry? Buyer purchased Monsanto. ChemChina purchased Syngenta. So basically we have one basic in the country. And so then you go to land-grant universities, and their research funding is being cut. Again, we have to think about it in the mid and long term. These things aren't immediate. You don't, come up with a new basic R&D and say, boy, we're going to be able to turn this thing around right away. This is a 10-year, 20-year problem. When droughts and weather issues are significant, water demand, and ag is a huge user of water, is set to outstrip supply by 2030 by 40 to 50%. We need drought-tolerant seeds. We need different practices, and that's the kind of funding that is necessary and should be focused on with ag research.
Everything is national security now.
I think so.
Well, listen, thank you so much for the time, Beth.
Thank you.